Eric, welcome to Gold Derby, and congratulations for winning the Emmy for Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series last year. That must have been an absolute thrill for you.
It was an absolute thrill. I pretty much was in shock when I won, and somehow shifted into I need to be a professional in front of all these people mode, and then went right back into shock afterwards. But yeah, it was an absolute thrill. You know, Jesse and Ty and I all had sort of agreed that any of us that won was a win for all of us. We all feel that way, and hopefully this year Ed will be in the mix and hopefully take home the trophy this year himself.
Even coming off a win for the show, that must have been so wonderful for everybody on set. What was it like in the first few days when everyone was back together? Was it just a feeling of elation? Was it like, could you feel the difference?
Well, you know, everyone was excited. I wouldn't say there was a major difference. I think the win for us was, you know, affirmation for the whole crew. You know, individual nominations and wins are great, but that Best Comedy Award really represents every person who has worked a single second on our show. And I don't know if you remember it or not, but we bookended the show. Like, my category was first up that I was fortunate enough to win in, and then we ended the show with the big win for the show. So that was quite a night for us. We were all very excited, very happy and grateful for all the accolades.
Well, Eric, I mean, you mentioned something I wanted to bring up. Your category was very first one of the night. I mean, Jimmy Fallon comes out and they do the big Glee number, and you're barely in your seat, and then you've got your category up. What is it like for people that us will never know the feeling to have your name read out amongst the other names, and you're waiting to hear a response?
Yeah, you know, I guess I'm the type of person that tries not to think about it too much because of how otherworldly it really is to be invited to the Emmys, to be at the Emmys, to be nominated for an Emmy, to see that ballot and how committed you have to be to find the names that you're looking for, and to stick to that ballot and find people you look up to and the performances you admire. To know that someone did that for me and found my name amongst the hundreds of names was really incredible. And then when my name was read, first of all, when Betty White walked out on the stage, my mom leaned over to me at that point and said, "Hey, I really want to meet her before the night's over." And I was like, well, you very well might here. So that kind of threw me off the game. And then I just sat there and I listened for the first consonant sound of that I could hear. You know, like I was just like, because no one else's name sounded like mine. Everyone else had their distinct hard consonant sound. So I was just listening for and before I could hear it, it was Stonestreet, and I was out of my seat and kissing my mom and my girlfriend, and I was on stage.
I wanted to ask you, I mean, you've been in the business a good while, over a decade, and I was looking through your IMDb credits. I mean, you've been on about every show. There's a lot of good quality shows too over the course of the years. What's it like, not being an overnight sensation, but working all these years, and then suddenly people are recognizing you?
Well, it's really, you know, I always said, the 12 years of 12 years of rejection really has a fantastical way of humbling you when this sort of success happens. You know, I had the pleasure of getting to work, you know, quite a bit, but that doesn't even remotely over the years, you know, that didn't go my way. So I definitely am appreciative of those years leading up to this, and it definitely makes you appreciate the job and the employment. I think people are always blown away by the fact that what Modern Family represents to me on the very, very basic level of employment is this is the first time in a 12-year career I've had employment for more than 8 days. You know, I don't think people really know that about actors, that we're in, we're out, we're there for a day. If we get 8 days on an episode, that means our characters in every potentially a lot of the scenes of a procedural drama or something like that. So that's where I start with Modern Family. So you can imagine winning an Emmy, what what that means on top of the fact that I have employment for more than 8 days. So it's pretty cool, and I'm happy to have a job, and I'm happy that it's this one.
Well, now you got the hard effort of maybe trying to go back-to-back and win 2 Emmys, and that means you'll have to choose another episode off of season number 2 here. Is there any one particular one that jumps out in your mind of your performance or the writing for your character that you really loved?
Well, I think honestly, and listen, I was super proud to win last year. I don't really think this year. I think hopefully it'll be Ty, Jesse, or Ed that wins one this year, if not me. But I think it's been a great season for us. I don't have an episode yet. I was hoping you guys would tell me which episode to submit, actually, because I love Two Monkeys and a Panda. I think that's a really funny episode, and it's a good episode for my character. I love Strangers on a Treadmill, which is where I wear the bike shorts. There's that nice moment, in the bathroom at the end of the scene where Jesse and I sort of kiss with the shaving cream. I love the episode for myself called Unplugged, which at the end of the episode is where I do the American Indian, well, my white man name is Cameron, or whatever it is. That was a fun thing to play. But I really don't know. I mean, I think The Music Man was good, and I think tonight's episode is really strong too. But I don't know. I really, honestly, the answer to you is I don't know. I'll be anxious to hear what your thoughts and maybe what viewers' thoughts are, because I won the Emmy last year. If I ever win it again, that's, again, more icing on top of an already delicious sweet cake.
I can imagine. I mean, hopefully people will comment when this interview is posted on Gold Derby, but I think you hit the nail on the head with those episodes you mentioned, Eric. I'll probably also add... Oh, you can't hear me?
We're okay.
We're okay. I would probably add Princess Party as well. I mean, we don't want to beat a dead horse, but every time Fizbo appears on the show, the laughs ensue, I would put it that way, and you might want to consider that one as well, given that you won for Fizbo the year before. But I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head on those episodes you mentioned, so that's pretty good. At least you're on the right track.
Yeah, I have to say you guys cut out on me there, and I didn't hear anything except until you said Princess Party. So I'm going to have to watch this myself and see what you actually said.
Okay. Well, we're recording. Everything seems okay. The other one I would mention, and I think personally, I mean, we don't know what you've got coming up here in May for sweeps, and you obviously do, but so there may be something in there. But just the sight of you in the opera cape in Earthquake, and I love that. So that might be a potential. But of all the ones you mentioned, I kind of think the Two Monkeys and a Panda, that was it gave a whole other side, I thought, to you, and might be something to consider.
Yeah, it was a great episode. Our guest writer of the season, Carol Leifer, turned in that script, and then of course our writers go to work on it as well. But it really, we always think that Cam and Mitch are a very real, believable couple, even though some people weigh in and say we're not or whatever. We really feel like our relationship is so strong that we're able to have those tiffs and have those moments and have that bickering and arguing sometimes, if you will, because that's what real couples do, and you fight through it, and that's, in real life, that's where you learn the most about relationships, and you can just assume that Cam and Mitch know each other very, very well and love each other, or they wouldn't have had a child together and they wouldn't be together. And that episode really shows that part of their relationship, that they had a real argument, and Mitchell did something really awful, and yet our writers managed to make it funny. Me sitting there in that hat, that tiny little Asian hat at that table, I love moments like that. I think our show is so good at doing things like that, starting with in the pilot where we're having this very serious conversation in front of the mural in which I'd had painted by our friend Andre of us as angels hovering over Lily's crib. That's the backdrop to this very dramatic scene, and I love that so much.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, before you go, Eric, I just wanted to say that you've had a lot of really amazing guest actors already on the show. My favourite would be Nathan Lane as Pepper. He's a complete scream. What would be one of your highlights so far?
Well, Nathan definitely is up there. I was saying earlier that when Nathan Lane shows up on your set, you know you're in for a fun time. He's very professional. He knows his lines like right off the bat, and he's open for direction and open to play, and just definitely a highlight. Celia Weston, who they cast as my mom, was definitely a highlight to work with. She's a wonderful, nice, talented, funny person. But you know, I've said this in interviews a lot, and I'll continue to say it. The studio and the network will always be able to attract their celebrity guest stars for our show, and it's important that we have some. But I love it when a guy like myself 2 years ago gets an opportunity to come onto the show and play a great part and get himself some attention and get himself, moving up in the business a little bit, because those were the parts before I was fortunate enough to be on Modern Family that I was out there fighting for to get opportunities to play. So I love it when, like last year on our Christmas episode, an actor named Brian Finney came on and just killed it as the deadbeat Santa Claus. He was fantastic, and that's a great example that they could have put a celebrity in that and they would have been fine, but here was this journeyman actor, working actor, who was just fantastic in the role. So I always hope for that. I really like the actors that came on and played Longinus and Crispin in Boys Night Out this couple weeks ago. They were fantastic. I love how they introduced the Longinus character. For fans, they may remember that Longinus was the person who sprayed Phil with Oasis for Men, and that's how you first met Longinus in an episode well before we ever hung out with him. So I hope we always get those opportunities to get some really great, talented actors who are looking to have their own break in the business on our show as well, because it's a perfect show to help actors' careers.
Well, along those lines, we only brought up the Emmy Awards, but, your cast takes the Screen Actors Guild Ensemble Award this year, too. That's got to be awfully sweet, because that's coming from just the kind of folks you mentioned, the journeyman actors that fill up the Guild. What was that moment like for you, and what did it mean coming from all the actors in the Guild?
Well, that was really, really something. We wanted to win that last year, and Glee was fortunate enough to win it last year. But we made no bones about it last year that we really wanted to win that award. No actor in the Screen Actors Guild would ever tell you that they don't want to win the SAG award for ensemble, because I think our show is the perfect example of ensemble. We always are working with each other, minimally one of us, we're always together, and a lot of times there's 4 or 5 of us together. So we just felt like the Ensemble Award is something that we sure should be seriously considered to win. So we were very happy to win it, and I am very happy to report that those SAG Awards are the heaviest awards that I've ever could imagine someone could make. It's like, it's the heaviest award you've ever felt. And what's funny about that is Sophia, after we won, we were walking backstage, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, this thing's so heavy." And Ty was like, "Yeah, Sophia, you probably shouldn't say anything about how heavy the award you just won is." And I said, "Or how tight your diamond strap slippers are either, Sophia." I would probably leave that out of the conversation as well.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, Eric, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you, and we wish you all the best for this year's Emmys and continued success for the show, and good luck.
All right, I appreciate it. I'll check in to see what your consensus is on what I should submit for the Emmys this year. But I'm really pulling for the other guys in our cast. I always say I was the first one lucky enough to win it, and I hope by the end of this show, all 10 of us win an Emmy.